Uh, I am happy to introduce Dr. Purna Prasad, a visionary leader whose journey beautifully bridges the worlds of science, technology, and the arts. A pioneer in healthcare innovation, Dr. Prasad's contributions are transformative, having served as the Chief Technology Officer of Northwell Health, New York's largest healthcare system, and previously as Director of Clinical Technology at Stanford University Medical Center. Today, he leads groundbreaking healthcare robotics and drone technology efforts with his own company. Beyond his remarkable professional accomplishments, Dr. Prasad is deeply rooted in his cultural heritage. Born into a traditional Vedic family, he carries forward the rich legacy of his grandfather, the esteemed scholar Gopinath Dasaru. In honoring this heritage, he co-founded Pampa USA to preserve and promote traditional performing arts across continents. His artistic journey is enriched by tutelage under legendary figures such as Sri Vayapuri Deva, Dr. M. Balamurali Krishna, and Pandit Ravi Shankar. At the same time, his acting talents were honored by the celebrated filmmaker Sri G.V. Iyer in the award-winning film Madhvacharya. An ardent disciple of Padma Shri Dr. Bananjay Govindacharya, Dr. Prasad is also committed to teaching Vedic scriptures like the Bhagavad-gita and Upanishads. A true polymath, Dr. Prasad continues to inspire through his role as a professor of AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, and robotics at Hofstra University, balancing cutting-edge innovation with timeless wisdom. Over to you.
जयति पराशर सोनुः सत्यवती हृदय नंदनो व्यासः यस्यास्य कमलगलितं वाङ्मयम् अमृतं जगत्पिबति भुजग भोगाभमुद्यम्य हृद्यं निजभुजं दक्षिणं लक्षणाढ्यं ललित मुद्रिक्त विज्ञान मुद्रं भज भज अनन्तमित्या अलपन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधम् भवदवोष्णेन तातप्यमानान् भुवि परं नाथम् अप्रेक्षमाणान् भुवनमन्येन च अन्येन दोष्णा भवतु भीर्मा इति न सान्त्वयन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधम्. Offering my deepest respects to our revered Guru Padaru, Sri Sugunendra Tirtha Sri Padaru, and all the august audience over here, and my obeisance to my Vidya Guru and my Adhyatma Pita, Dr. Bananjay Govindacharya, and to the lotus feet of Shri Vishwaguru, Srimadananda Tirtharu, and Bhagavan Krishna. Today I see it as a great opportunity to present a perspective that is often talked about. Bhagavad-gita through the lens of modern science. There have been sparkles of attempt to do this. But here is a perspective that I have learned for the past 3 decades under the revered Guru, Dr. Bananjay Govindacharya. And it's a blessing to offer this to the holy feet of Bhagavan Madhvacharyaru and Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Gita's psychological and spiritual dimensions are mind-boggling. There is a key similarity between how Krishna takes Arjuna through the Bhagavad-gita. The beauty is, the name itself is called Bhagavad-gita. Gita means vibrations, divine vibrations. So how does the Gita start? Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjayaha Poundram Dadmo Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vrukodaraha. The 4 principal vibrations of the sound practically start the entire Kurukshetra. The Kurukshetra may be a mortal battlefield in the land of Kurukshetra, but also it is in the heart of every Kuru that Krishna stands inside. Now, this type of a complete endowed system is a systematic approach that one could even see in Bhagavata in the creation of the Mahatattva, the architecture of how the entire universe is actually built. Now, Krishna's approach really resembles a very scientific process. In the science, modern science, physics, chemistry, biology, and quantum mechanics, we've got 4 steps when we actually do the research. The first one is observation. You have observed a phenomenon. The second thing is you put a hypothesis. It may be a null hypothesis that it's always equal, or an alternative hypothesis that one is superior to another. Very similar to Purva Paksha, but not Purva Paksha. Be very careful over there. And then comes the analysis to see if it holds true, if the alternative hypothesis holds true, or the null hypothesis holds true. Whatever holds true is actually presented as a conclusion. Now, this is the modern scientific approach. There are a lot of problems because in this approach, you are dealing with a very controlled environment. It is extremely Simita. It is not Vishwa. But what Krishna did was, he basically used the same principles that we mortals can understand in order to expose his experimental entity, Arjuna. It's not just Arjuna. It includes the current 7.5 to 8 billion people in this universe. We are all Arjunas. Let's not forget that. And then, what happened? Exactly what would happen to us. Arjuna got confused. Nakangshe Vijayam Krishna. We get confused. You are all confused now because you don't know what I am going to say next. I am confused because I don't know what I want to say next. This condition in psychology, clinical psychology, is called cognitive dissonance. Hence, Arjuna became the first psychiatric patient and Krishna becomes the first psychiatrist in this entire universe. What does he do? He observes Arjuna. How does he observe? Without telling us that he is observing, just letting Arjuna basically unravel himself. The entire first chapter, unraveling of Arjuna. Krishna doesn't say a word. And that's how we do too. We try to convince everybody that we are right when we don't even know whether we are right or wrong, because even we are in cognitive dissonance at every step in our life. We are confused. So what do we do? Of course, we need a profound psychological treatment. This conflict is always driven by contradictory beliefs. My duty, well, will it affect my people? The same thing happens to us. I want to do the right thing, but it is going to affect the bottom line of my people. So what do? I don't want to do it. So what do? I try to convince everybody in the world, like Arjuna trying to convince Krishna, that the right thing to do is give up everything. Nakangshe Vijayam Krishna. Give everything up. No Rajya, nothing. Out. Here the beautiful thing is, like us, not only is Arjuna having cognitive dissonance, he is trying to pursue the ultimate reality Krishna to accept with him. That's exactly we do to our bosses, to our parents, to everybody. So everybody is on our side because we are lazy. And this dilemma represents intense cognitive condition in Arjuna. So, duty as a warrior, Kshatriya Dharma, and uphold the righteousness, Dharma, Vishwa Dharma. What do? My compassion to the family and the conflict. can I hold the Gandiva and destroy Bhishmacharya and Dronacharya? This emotional and psychological conflict is so beautifully depicted in the first chapter, verses 28. He says, Drashtva ivam swajanam Krishna. Oh Krishna, seeing this kinsman, I can't fight, everything is going down. My Gandiva, I can't hold on to it. I'm sweating. My mind cannot work. It has stopped working completely. Even my face has gone frown. What do? Krishna says nothing. What is this moral and ethical dilemma? It basically happens right in the brain. If you do the magnetic resonance of a psychological patient, you will see it very clearly. There are different areas that light up. It actually shows you what Arjuna went through in the Kurukshetra. But there, we did not need an MRI because the greatest MRIs of all times, Krishna was right there to see, Vedavyasa to write, and Sanjaya to tell us exactly what's happening. It's one of the greatest testament to observation hypothesis. Now comes the analysis, which actually is very beautiful. Krishna, in the very second chapter, says, you grieve for those who should not be grieved for, because the wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. If you actually look at the science behind it, it's exactly what Vedavyasa said. What has to happen will happen. What should not happen will never happen. When in an atom, as the electrons gain energy and go from one orbit to another, to higher orbits, those are predestined. Mathematics works because it is predestined. The number 18 worked in Bhagavad Gita because it was predestined. The Vedic number stops at 18. That is the way the Mahat Tattva is composed. You see the mathematics behind Bhagavad Gita in every step of the way. And the second thing that I want to stress is, there was a famous quote by the great Albert Einstein. He said, if you want to keep the balance, keep cycling. If you do not cycle, you will fall off the balance. That's exactly what Krishna says. Hato va prapsasi swargam, jitva va bokshase mahim, tasmad uttishta kaunteya, yuddhaya kritanischayaha. You have to fight, you have to keep the balance. Because the physics says very clearly, if you do not move, you do not keep the balance. Why? Because the Mahat Tattva showed us that force is equal to mass into acceleration. What is force? Vayu Shakti. What is mass? Brahma Shakti. Nothing works until Bhagavan comes as acceleration. So here is your Bhagavad Gita in the famous motion equation, F is equal to m into a. All the high school students know that much clearly than anybody else. I see the smiling faces here. How do you see Bhagavad Gita in basic algebra? Take a quadratic equation. Everybody knows that. Ax square plus bx plus c. A, B, C. And the x jiva. You have A acting on it because of the sattvic condition, B because of rajasic condition, and C because of tamasic condition. Ax square plus bx plus c. Now, what happens? The solution to this is actually equal to the big B. The big B is the big B right there, the big man. And he says, here is the solution, minus b square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. To discuss that, I will come back to Rajangana again because that is a whole lecture in itself. How to see how to decipher Bhagavad Gita in this quadratic equation. And finally, what about the deterministic and the probabilistic problems we face in physics, in chemistry? Einstein said, I'm happy that I discovered quantum mechanics, but I hate myself that I discovered quantum mechanics. Why? Because before Einstein, everything was deterministic. The 3 laws of Newton was very deterministic. Unfortunately, that was not the real picture. The real picture was the Schrodinger's cat. It may be there, it may not be there. Tade jati tanne jati, taddure tadantare. End of story. Here comes quantum mechanics with probabilistic theory. But the beauty is, even though modern science is struggling with these probabilities, the Vedic science will directly go to the certainty, to the definitive answer for any question. Because the equation from the Vedic mathematics and physics is applicable to universal and the atom. Anoraniya mahato mahiya. Whereas what is applicable to the quantum, the anoraniya is not applicable to the universal or the gravitation in modern science. Why are we struggling? Because modern science is just 400 years old, whereas Vedic science has a legacy of tens of thousands. Of course, if you take the Vedas, Vedas are apaurushaya. It is the very essence of knowledge. Hence, the most important thing is, when you look at the Bhagavad Gita through the lens of modern science, it is only a lens that is giving you a different perspective. The real Vijnana science is the Bhagavad Gita that was given to us by Bhagavan Vedavyasa and Bhagavan Krishna. Let's make that very clear to us, because it is universal. Vishwatas chakshuruta vishwator mukho vishwato bahuruta. You say universal to the physicists, they are going to start trembling, because they can get nothing that is universal. It is very deterministic, and it always is closed by a boundary condition, standard temperature, pressure, so on and so forth. Analyzing Bhagavad Gita is just fantastic, because Krishna teaches Arjuna to reframe his perspective. What is reframing in science? Because in science, there is really no difference between a dot in space and a line in space, because a dot looked at the other dimension is a line looked at another dimension is a dot. Here, he actually helps Arjuna to see that his duty as a warrior, in order to give this greater protection, dharma, to this universe, is the only universal law. It has the dot and the line and the 3 dimensions and the 4 dimensions. It is amazing when you do this. And when you do this, what happens? Detachment from the fruits of action. Nishkama karma. That is why Bhagavad Gita's whole message is Nishkama karma nitya sandesha. It is always in the present. Athato brahma jignasa. Ataha, always there. It doesn't have a time scale. It is T is equal to now. That is why it is called Paramatma. So you see the mathematics and its universal applicability. The only dimension and tattva that actually gives that to you is the Vedic science. And finally, with all this going on, the entire restructuring of Arjuna's mind by Krishna. Our prayer, Bhagavan, restructure our mind so we do not go crazy with how the mind works, because mind is a wild horse. Then for every doubt the mind gets, we try to inject the judgment of the intellect. Unfortunately, our intellect is very limited. So what do? That is why Acharya Madhva said so beautifully, you have to trust your experiential evidence. Anubhava Satya. The Anubhava Satya that Einstein saw when he was cycling towards that clock tower, the Anubhava Satya that Newton saw when the apple fell down, and the Anubhava Satya for the creation or the visualization of the structure of the benzene that Kekule saw, where the snake caught its own tail. It actually is a sprune, it is a intuition, it is not an intellectual composition. Intellectual composition is actually restricted by every person's intellect. But intuitional composition, Anubhava Satya, as Acharya Madhva said, is not based on logic. It is only based on experiential evidence. And that experiential evidence is the highest level of scientific temperament anybody can have in order to understand Bhagavad Gita through the lens of modern science. That is the reason I'm going to end my presentation by a direct quote as to why Anubhava Satya is important, quoted by our Sripadaru Sri Madhvacharya. Nahi tarkena Bhagavan asti iti sadetum shakyate. Yadi shakyate nastityapi sadetum shakyate. Anumanam hi tarko nama pratyaksham va agamam va anusrityamanam anumanam. Nakhyanumanasya swatantra pravurtihi atendriyadigame veda eva sharanam. Nendriyani nanumanam vedarhaivainam vedayante tasmadahur veda iti. Iti shrutihi etamevartham avagamayati. Om Swastihi.